Welcome to InfoSphere. Today, we're exploring one of the most peculiar wars in history, the Great Emu War of 1932. Picture this: the Australian government, with military forces and heavy weaponry, waging war on Emus? It may sound like the plot of a comedy film, but this is a true story. Let's dive into the details of this strange episode in Australian history. The Great Emu War's origins are rooted in Australia's post-World War I history. As Australian soldiers returned home, the government granted them parcels of land in Western Australia. This was part of a broader plan to boost agriculture and support the nation's veterans. But by the early 1930s, these farmers faced a number of difficulties. The Great Depression was at its peak, and prices for wheat, the main crop, had plummeted. On top of financial woes, a drought had set in, damaging their crops and making an already tough situation even worse. Then, to add insult to injury, the farmers encountered another enemy, the emus. As spring approached, approximately 20,000 emus descended from the inland areas to the farmlands of Western Australia. Emus are migratory birds, and they usually move towards the coast in search of food and water as temperatures rise. But these farmlands provided an unintended bounty for the emus fields filled with wheat and easy access to water sources. For the farmers, these birds were a menace. The emus trampled crops, tore down fences, and devoured entire fields of wheat. To put things into perspective, each emu can eat up to 2 pounds of grain per day. Multiply that by thousands, and it's easy to see why the farmers were desperate. After numerous complaints, the farmers sought help from the Australian government. They needed a solution to control the emu population before the birds caused irreparable damage to their crops. The government, recognizing the importance of agriculture, agreed to assist. Enter Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery. Armed with 2 Lewis machine guns, Major Meredith and his men headed to the wheat belt in November of 1932. They had around 10,000 rounds of ammunition and were determined to eliminate the emu threat. The operation began on November 2, 1932. The soldiers found a group of about 50 emus near the town of Campion and set up their machine guns. But the birds had other plans. As soon as the soldiers began firing, the emus scattered in all directions. These birds were incredibly fast and agile, moving too quickly for the soldiers to aim accurately. The first attempt was a failure. The soldiers managed to kill only a handful of emus, and the rest disappeared into the bush. Over the next several days, Major Meredith and his team chased down various groups of emus with little success. At one point, they attempted to mount a machine gun on a truck, hoping to chase down the emus at high speed. But the rough terrain made aiming nearly impossible, and the operation was quickly abandoned. What the soldiers hadn't accounted for was the resilience and sheer toughness of the emus. Emus travel in packs, and they have a knack for avoiding danger. They would split into smaller groups, making them harder to target, and their thick feathers often protected them from bullets. One soldier reported that a single emu took multiple shots and kept running as if nothing had happened. These birds were also deceptively intelligent, evading traps, and consistently outrunning the troops. By November 8, only a few dozen emus had been killed, and Major Meredith's team was running low on ammunition. By December, it was clear that the emus had won. Major Meredith and his troops had killed roughly 1,000 emus, but had expended nearly 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The government decided to call off the operation, admitting that the military had been defeated by a flock of birds. Major Meredith later commented that if the emus had been armed, they would have been a formidable enemy. The Great Emu War had cost the Australian government both money and embarrassment. Although the military's intervention failed, the emu problem didn't go away. Instead, the government introduced a bounty system where farmers were paid for each emu killed. This method proved more effective in the long run. Today, the Great Emu War is remembered as a quirky chapter in Australian history, but it also led to important changes in wildlife management. Emus are now protected under Australian law, and the event served as a lesson in the importance of ecological balance and humane wildlife control. Thanks for tuning in to InfoSphere. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the Great Emu War, so drop a comment below. And let us know if there's another curious moment in history you'd like us to explore. Until next time.